Good evening and welcome to this edition of Defacto Review with Jargal Defacto and myself, Grace Brown. We are live on Facebook at V Television. You can also follow the conversation on Twitter, #Defacto. Coming up on the programme. Mongolians vote on their new president Monday, so what's each candidate promising? Mongolian Copper Corporation wins a key appeal to keep their board. And Miat launches a new flight to Busan, but how long before Mongolia opens its skies? Thank you for joining us. After a very eventful presidential campaign, Mongolia's 3 presidential candidates will stand for election on Monday. It's a race between the current Speaker of Parliament, Mirgombo Enkbold of the Mongolian People's Party, judo star business tycoon Khatma Batulga of the Democratic Party, and former Member of Parliament Sanghu Ganbatar of the Mongolian People's Revolutionary Party. The 3 headed off in a debate on Saturday night. What were they discussing, Jargal?
Well, first of all, I would like to tell what was the story behind of this debate. The political parties have been agreeing or not agreeing to the format and where and who will be moderating, etc., for quite some time. It is the 3rd attempt to make a debate, which fortunately happened last night from 9 to 11 for 2 hours on the public TV.
MNB, and it was live, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was live, and they had very rigid rules, and I think the process itself was very much orchestrated, very well organized in a way, because they had 4 boxes. 1 box is from the questions related to their program, another box for 1 candidate, and another 2, 3 for other candidates. And they have put the questions, because each representative, each party was among this kind of commission. They made editorial commission, and they have been receiving questions by public media, social media. They grouped into 4 questions, four areas, to each of them 1.
So the questions came from the public?
On the public, and they made kind of analysis, and also they have agreed among themselves which questions to be included. And I think it was kind of, if it's questions included here, it will be included there, etc. But finally, the debate at the end looked like just question and answer sessions, because they will select 1 question for the A candidate, 2nd question, B candidate, and then after 3 they go to the general box and go with that questions. And at the end, that questions most interested, because these 3 were a lot of private questions, like who's your wife, and a lot of private questions.
Which doesn't seem necessarily relevant.
It is the not most important issue on that regard. And also, each candidate before that certain have scandals around that. Separate questions went to each of them also. But I thought the debate is about, if they required that questions kind of scandals, they could do just 1 or 2, not the whole through. Almost 1 hour it took for them to answer all this.
Just 1 hour just on personal questions.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And
But what about the key issues affecting Mongolians?
Not all key issues were answered and asked also.
Did they discuss
except few
jobs or?
Yeah, in very general terms. In
Right.
particular, after each answered certain in a way. There were several, some 5, 6. I have here a group of questions. The general questions they have asked, I now shortly brief. But before that, since it was just question and answer, we did not see any debate kind of, because as you said, unemployment. What's the solutions?
Right, because 90% of Mongolians are out of work at the moment.
And 80% of graduates of universities, after the graduation party, next day they look for jobs, 80%. And that means how much this mismatch is happening, in supply and demand. So now the issue is unemployment. Who will create the employment? Private sector, public sector. If public sector, how many new government companies will be made? Because we are now, Mongolia has so many
new government companies.
Yeah.
I thought they were trying to scale back state-owned enterprises.
That's what is the expectation, and plus The other question could be about the price. Who will control the price? Why the government is controlling prices? The third, how to get the private business thriving, how to create this playing level field, right? All these questions were not only asked, but they have not been debating on the issue among each other. That's the concern, and the viewers were not all happy, and you can reflect it in social media. So it's in general, we could not see their vision. We could not see the way they will improve economy. In general, what's number one, two, three, we haven't seen that. So that's what is the debate format about. We can go in details, but however, because this election law, today our scheduled this program today we have some issue, not going into too much details, otherwise it will be regarded as a promotion of a candidate, which we are not to do. So that's why my limited answer about the debate it is. But we can go by general questions as well.
Well, in general, has there been much noise about the IMF during this campaign? Because this comes at a critical time. Mongolia has just secured a $5.5 billion refinancing package that is led by the International Monetary Fund. And of course, that locks in certain budgets and taxes for the next 5 years. Has this come up during the election?
During election, it comes up here and there. But the half of the, 2/3 of their terms, they went spent in the countryside. You know, it's a huge country.
Yes.
Within only just 10 or 11 days, they need to go through each IMAX, each of them. So it was quite a physical task, and they have successfully completed.
So all three candidates have been through all IMAX.
Yes, one by, in the return. So what happened was, you asked about IMF and economic conditions. During the election, it was not that big a deal because now economic situation is changed. After their first tranche of IMF, $440 million US, $38 million US are inside of the country already. And that already is making change. This Tugrik. Tugruk is now has more value because it was before 2,500 Tugriks $1, now 2,350 is about the rate, which is substantial change in the rate. People are happy in the economy. The sentiment is
right.
changing.
There have been some positive signs as well. I mean, in the first quarter, we saw growth rebound to around 4.1%. That's up from just 1% for the year of 2016. So, coal prices are up, coal exports are up. So, there are some more positive economic signs.
Well, you see, both don't depend on Mongolians. It is not depending on what we have created. International commodity prices coming up, which is good case in the Mongolian mineral-dependent economy. Right.
I mean, resolving the long-term boom and bust cycle that led to this sixth IMF bailout in the first place needs to be addressed by the new president.
Secondly, the government otherwise was paying the salary of public employees through raising domestic bonds. Now, once they stopped it, then the debt burden becoming less, the debt becoming less expensive. So it is positively reflected in the budget, in particular its current expenses. And as you said, these prices come up. But however, it reminds me 2009. After 2008, same
financial crisis, yeah.
What happened? We got $230 or so million standby program
from
of
the
IMF.
Yes.
Then just after we received, the price went up, and Mongolians were just immediately paid and go ahead with the same way.
Sort of complacency, you think?
Yeah, I mean that may happen again. That's what I'm worried. Hopefully not this time, because now we have much more foreign debt than that time. So we need
that
more
has now doubled,
fiscal
more than
discipline.
double the size of the economy,
Way
about
than,
$23 billion. This is only a roughly $10 billion economy.
Yeah, now about $12 billion US economy, And some almost 40–50% equivalent of this economy is budget expenses. So people are a bit now more worried if the government will go as it was 7 years ago, we may have end up even with a bigger problem. But however, with IMF money, Mongolian...
Well, the EEF, the new extended fund facility, EFF, is a lot stricter, and it's a longer term repayment with more regular checks than the standby agreement of 2009. And so will that maybe help to keep them on track?
Two ways. One is IMF. There is a IMF inspection group.
Quarterly.
They are coming, and the report will say exactly, and depending on the result of that inspection report, the second transactions or second tranche of money is coming.
Right.
And it may not coming if they are not doing what they agreed to do, the government.
So in this context, given that they are accountable to that EFF agreement with the IMF and the other parties involved, including the World Bank, including Korea, including the People's Bank of China, Japan, how much can the new president really do? And what is the role of Mongolia's president?
Mongolian president has, we call it this head of the state, it's symbolic figure, but at the end, in terms of justice, he's not symbolic figure anymore, because he is nominating judges, he is nominating...
The head of the International Agency Against Corruption.
He's suggesting, and it is approved by the parliament, and also the Anti-Corruption Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency. Those are organizations or bodies, institutions, if they do properly their job, the law of justice could be set and fixed in this society. But which is not the case. Many scandals are remaining there or disappearing slowly. Nobody is getting punished, and people is very hardly believe in this justice system in the country. So that's the whole thing about this election, and hopefully our new president will change the picture, and we will have more seriously demanding justice and implementing president. That's the expectation of the people.
Well, Mongolians will head to the polls tomorrow, but voter turnout has been declining steadily in Mongolia's parliamentary and presidential elections. You know, is there any concern that that will be the case tomorrow?
Mostly, because we go now 6th time to the presidential election.
This
if
is the
take the
seventh.
Previous 7th. I mean, 6 elections happened of the president. The first one was turnaround was the turning of the voters was 93%. But the last one with the President El-Baghdadi was elected, it was 63%. So at every case, it was on the average 4 to 5% decrease.
Why is voter turnout declining?
It's called it's called a separation. People now see whether I am there or not. Things don't depend on me, and people are separating themselves from the process, democratic process, which is very unfortunate trend. And but this time, I think if the turnaround, if this following that logic, it should be less than 60% about. But even out of the 60%, a candidate should win 50% of those who voted. But however, there is if you vote, like there are 3 candidates you support, just one of them. If you don't support none of them, your vote is still valid. You are regarded as voted, but voted for nobody. That's the outcome of this voting. If that voted for nobody comes and either don't know, don't support any of them.
You mean you turn up and then you hand in a blank ballot,
Yes.
which some quite influential people have been calling for in this election?
Yeah, unfortunately, because this election, the candidates' preparations, the way how they came out from their own political parties were a lot questionable, particularly by the people inside of the political party. So it was very much debatable issues, discussions issues.
What happens in that case if people do hand in blank ballots?
What happened is, out of
Does it count?
whoever voted, including those blank voted people, if nobody is taking 50% of those votes, we have in 2 weeks second round.
Oh, a runoff. Okay.
But even worse, at the second round, if people still comes with this approach, say more than 15% people, then this whole election is not valid.
But this, I mean, surely this is incredibly costly if
very much so, but some people argue
elections after elections.
Yeah, but some people argue that is it more expensive than to have a candidate that the people don't want. So that's another dilemma and argument for those people who is saying that I will go in that way.
It's very interesting. Well, moving on, almost a year has now passed since Mongolian Copper Corporation bought a 49% stake in Erdenet mine, which was previously held by Russia. The government since attempted to take control of the board and the company's assets, but the Administrative Court of Mongolia has ruled in favor of MCC, which won an injunction to suspend some government directives. All actions by the government from March the 29th in regards to this were declared void. It's funny that this is 1 year on. I mean, on the eve of parliamentary elections last year, Jargal, you've been a vocal critic of both the government's actions to attempt to take control of this, but you're also very critical of the original sale to MCC. What do you believe that this outcome says about the rule of law in Mongolia?
Remember that we have a lot still questions how it was arranged. Arranged because it is certain, this sort of, they now argue that no, it is not Mongolian property, it was a Russian property and Mongolian companies bought. But our politicians have participated in the transactions now. How these politicians can act secretly, that part is more controversial issues in terms of purchasing. First controversial issues. Second issue is Mongolian parliament, new parliament, made the decisions to take off from the 49% from the private company, which is not the authority of this parliament, because it is, if something wrong, then the judicial system should make decisions. So that both is controversial now. Then the now third, as you said, now administrative court decided that it was wrong. That's I think I was expecting too. And now, then who is right? That's the next round. And I think it may take another 1 year to make that decisions. So how long it altogether takes time, it's a question. It's quite political issue from the beginning. It's an issue of justice system to be independent.
Could
also.
the government appeal this decision?
They will do, I think.
And where would it go from here?
Then they will go, if it is this administrative court decision is appealed by, on this side, then they will go to the highest court, appeal court, court of appeal.
Yes.
They go, and then if they don't agree happy, then they go to the constitutional court. And that's also a problem, because all these courts are controlled by the people who have been nominated, or candidates who were nominated and later on approved by the parliament, but nominated by the president. So you see, as you see, this presidential role is substantial.
Yes. Yeah, with the power to nominate judges, as you mentioned. MCC has not commented on this outcome yet, and neither has the government of Mongolia.
It is not a really time of commenting, because Now it's election, and everything
Yes.
is, we wait until the election is finished, and we don't know when this election is finally finished.
Well, finally, Miat Mongolian Airlines has launched its first direct flights to the beachside city of Busan in Korea this week, with round tickets at around 500,000 Mongolian tugrigs. The deputy transport minister says that that price could drop as much as 40% in future. Seems quite a reasonable price, and Korea is a very popular destination, right, Jargo, for Mongolian
Yeah, now in
tourists?
particular it is hot June and July. It is a gift of God for Mongolians. But we have another concern with the Miat Mongolian Airlines, because flight from Ulaanbaatar to Seoul is 1 hour almost shorter than Ulaanbaatar to Busan. And logically it is to be cheaper, right? And yet it is to be more expensive. Ulaanbaatar Busan is 780,000, 7 million no, this is, sorry, this
So,
is 780,000 tugrigs, or sometimes 800,000 tugrigs.
for
And
the round
Busan,
trip.
yeah, Busan, which is another 1 hour more flight, costs 60% of it.
I mean, is this perhaps down to taxes at those respective airports?
True, certain Incheon airport is more expensive. There
Yeah.
is but however,
And also demand to get into that airport.
but this Seoul Ulaanbaatar price is monopoly price by Korean Air and Mongolian Air, who are having their monopoly on this line for over 20 years ago. I mean, during 20 years. And Asiana, Korean Air, a competitor, they want to fly on that route. And in Korea, they would not allow that airline to fly. A Mongolian airline here did not allow other airlines. One is bankrupt, Easiness. And this monopoly is really a monopoly of Mongolian airlines on all international destinations of Mongolia, creating a huge problem, big bottleneck for tourism development of Mongolia.
Right. Well,
And
more a duopoly, because there could be several airlines. Like, for example, to fly to Moscow, you could choose Aeroflot or Miat, but still,
again,
essentially the
Miat,
same
Aeroflot
issue.
is also, again, they have own monopoly. And they don't allow Turkish Airlines direct flight from
To
Istanbul.
yes.
They force them to stop. I mean, technically they have
Bishkek.
to send Bishkek for
Yeah.
1 hour. And last year, Astana Air, which was announced their tickets, everything all around the world, they got everything agreed, and then just 2 weeks before the first maiden flight, they have Mongolia had canceled their flight, their permission. So all it shows, Mongolians are behaving very monopolistically, and this policy is hindering the development of tourism in the country. And small country like Mongolia should have open air policy. Everybody, whoever wants, they should fly. In that way, we will have cheaper cost to Mongolia, which is good for domestic businesses, tourism, domestic flights, which Miat can take, for example. And it's kind of just for the sake of having Miat as a national carrier. All Mongolians are paying altogether so high prices, which is not fair. Another example, as you know, the new airport is finished, completed. $580 million airport is, because it was made by Japanese, everything is on time.
But the road is not ready.
That's the issue, how Mongolia is running the business. Wherever Mongolian government is, they are always causing problems. It's a very clear example. This new airport costs millions of tourists every day for maintenance. No flight. Because there's no road from Ulaanbaatar to, and they say next Nadam time they will be finished. This is irresponsibility, incompetence, and this is the result of having incompetent people in the power of Mongolia. And they don't recognize it. And that's the striking differences of Mongolian and Japanese businesses. And plus, even it's open, the air is closed. It's only for Mongolian Airlines flight or their associates who had agreed with them, Miat, Aeroflot.
Air China.
Now, other airlines cannot fly.
Yes.
Why? Question is, Mongolian Airlines actually is not owned by Mongolian state or government. It's owned by a Mongolian winning political party, because every time they change their the head of all the leaders of the national airlines. So it's a very good mirror of Mongolian governance quality and how far the Mongolian government thinks and what kind of vision they have on development of tourism.
Well, I think in the near future, Miat is planning to launch new flights to Bangkok and also apparently to the west coast of America, although it's unclear whether that will be possible yet.
Once I remember Mongolia has a flight to Singapore.
Yes, the
Singapore.
Miat CEO told me that that was not the most productive
Of course,
route.
because they were not doing marketing, and
Yeah.
because there is no competition.
Yeah.
With monopolistic price, you can, and plus there was no marketing. Even they had fifth freedom or right to take passengers, and that did not work. So I don't know when Mongolian politicians and the state-owned companies say something, but it doesn't mean that it will happen, for sure. And that's why we need to change completely the quality of governance in this country. That's what this election is about. Though the presidential election in that sense not that substantial. And we have a hope that this current power, People's Party in power, may change some of them before too much criticizing people who is raising rational voices.
Right, because Mongolia is such an expensive destination to come to because of the cost of traveling here, and the government says it wants to diversify the economy, including more into tourism.
If you buy a ticket from Canada through Seoul to Mongolia, that price is twice almost cheaper than you fly in between Ulaanbaatar and Seoul. So this is the situation when somebody has a monopoly. And that's not good for market economy, and that's not good for the other sectors. In particular, for a landlocked country like Mongolia, airline is the key sector.
Right.
Unfortunately, it is almost monopolized completely.
Well, hopefully the road to the new airport will be open soon, and
Soon, they say 1 year later.
a Miat CEO said that there would be more competition once the new airport is there, that they would be forced to compete.
The competition should be now. Otherwise, planning for airlines' new route, it is taking half a year. So everything should be now already openly announced. Otherwise, not only after road, we cannot run the airport. Only 5 flights a day. That airport, which is 5 times more than this current one. And still we have to pay $480 million to Japan afterwards.
Doesn't sound like good value for money. Well, that brings this edition of Defacto Review to an end. That was Jargal Defacto and myself, Grace Brown. You can follow us on Facebook at Jargal Defacto. I'm Grace Brown 87. Thank you very much for being with us. Our
program will be posted just after election. Otherwise, before that election, we cannot do it, because it can be regarded as an advertisement for one of them, though we haven't done anything else. And thank you very much for having us tonight at this Sunday night. Thank you very much.
Good night.